May I preach to you this morning in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. One of my favorite things is to meet new people. My wife often says that, Alex, you're a social butterfly. But one of the things that usually happens as I get to be in a conversation with someone is that they'll ask the question that I think so many of us ask in one way or another. And they will ask, where are you from? Now that's a loaded question, because I could say, Queens. And then they'll go, South Florida. No. And then, we kind of keep going on from there. But what they're really asking is, what's your DNA? Where was your mom born? Where was your dad born? And whenever I tell them, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, some of them go, yeah, that makes sense. And others will go, never would have guessed it in a million years. And I recognize that because not all of these features that have come together on this faith seem to match. You can laugh at that. That's okay. And so a few years ago, I decided to do my DNA profile to find out kind of where my heritage and ancestry came from. And I can finally announce definitively that I am Irish. Okay, 1%, but that still counts. Our heritage and our ancestry and all those things are important to us because they reveal a great deal about where we've been, where our family has been, and maybe where we're headed. And on the Feast of All Saints, which is one of my favorite feast days, we sometimes can be prone to forget that the men and women of Christ, the men and women who are Christian, who have gone before us, the martyrs and the apostles and the teachers and the saints and the priests and everybody are part of our family. We share a spiritual DNA with them. And that spiritual DNA exists because we have been adopted through Jesus Christ. Because we chose to follow him, and because of what he has done for us, we're adopted sons and daughters of God. And the wonderful thing is that adopted sons and daughters in God receive the same inheritance, receive the same treatment as Christ himself. And so when we begin to think about our spiritual DNA, it's important for us to remember that those men and women from the past, they're not distant, faceless people. There are great, keep going, great grandparents. They are the people who laid the foundation for where we are today. And I don't think I have to really twist anybody's arm to discuss the importance of what it means to have a family. If you're a person that grew up in a stable home, in a loving home with a loving family that supported you and comforted you and cared for you, then you know what I'm talking about. You know what it means to have that DNA, that ancestry that is so strong to care for you. And if you're a person who has suffered because you didn't have that ideal family experience, and most of the time I say really who has, but if you did not have that time of love and comfort, of support, then you also know those wounds. You also know just how difficult life is. And so when we think about how to solve the problems of today, I think it begins with family. Now, the good news is if you don't have a family, you can be part of a body. Because the church is a family. It is a body that is linked together. All of us, that's what it says in the collect, knit together in one group. And so as a family, we get to do the things that families do. We gather. This is kind of like a family reunion this morning. We gather around the table to eat the family meal, to share in the food that nourishes us. And I think most importantly, we pray together. As they say, the family that prays together stays together. But this is a challenge because families are not always easy. If we're all siblings in this room, then we know that sometimes siblings don't always get along. But we also know that when push comes to shove, your siblings are there for you. And so that's why it's so important on this Feast of All Saints that we begin to see one another and all the people out in the world as our spiritual siblings who need that love and comfort and support. When I was a teacher many, many, many moons ago, but I can still remember because I haven't blocked it out of memory yet, I remember watching and seeing the difference between a child who comes in and has been loved and comforted and supported and the child who just feels abandoned. And those kids grow up. And they become adults who either feel loved and comforted and supported, or they are adults who feel abandoned. And so it is the task of our parish through those doors to open up and to welcome all who need that love and comfort and support, to let them know that you can choose this family. You can't choose the family in which you're born into, but you can choose this family and by virtue of your baptism, be born into it. If you look at the gospel reading for today, it seems very confusing what Jesus is talking about. Because he talks about being blessed at the same time about being poor. He talks about being blessed while at the same time being in mourning. He talks about being blessed while at the same time being hungry or persecuted. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense until we realize that Jesus is taking the definition of blessed and he's turning it on its head. He's completely redefining what it means to be a blessed individual. And by the way, this is something the church really needs to embrace because we don't always state the right definition of blessed. Too often I will hear a pastor or a priest, a Christian talk about, I am so blessed because I have this. And they may point to a car, a house, a bank account, and those are blessings. I'm not saying they're not blessings. But being blessed is more than that. Too often, we think of being blessed as having the perfect life. For those of you who grew up around the time that I did, it's the little house, white picket fence, 2.5 kids and a dog, right? Anybody else here ever get that image given to them, right? I don't know how you have 0.5 of a child, but that's another sermon. But today, being blessed is what I call the Instagram life. It's that perfect picture in perfect focus, doing exactly what you want, having the things that you need, and everything seems fine to the outside world. But if you look at the outside margins of the picture that's been taken, you can see the brokenness that surrounds that person's life sometimes. You can see the grief that they may be suffering because they've lost somebody that they've loved. You can see the despair that they feel because they've lost their job. You can feel the sadness that they feel because they're not connected to people. They may have 1,000 followers, but that doesn't mean that they're connected to people. So what does it mean to be blessed according to Jesus? It means that in the midst of the struggle, in the midst of hunger and mourning and persecution, that the kingdom of heaven is still with you. That the love of God, the fellowship of all the saints in light, that God himself is with you even in the struggle. And if we are willing to keep pushing and keep struggling and continue to live out our Christian identity, that's blessed. Because we know that this life in which we live right now is not the end. It's all going to fade away one day. All the things that we love to look at, all the things that comfort us right now that are fleeting, they're all going to go away one day. What will endure is the glory of God. So where does that leave us? Well, I think it leaves us in, first of all, recognizing what it means to be blessed. That we're not alone. That when we go home today and we find ourselves in the same struggle that we left this morning, that when we wake up tomorrow morning and find ourselves as tired as we were when we went to sleep, that we are not alone. Because first of all, Christ himself is with us. But also, all of the saints in light are praying for us, are rooting for us as well. When I began to look into my DNA, my grandmother took me aside and said, that's all well and good that you know what percentage is this and what percentage is that, but I want to show you a picture. She showed me a picture of her father, my great-grandfather, and my jaw just dropped. I am the spitting image of that man. She said, Alex, you sound like him, you walk like him, you even complain like him. Don't forget your past. And so when we go home today, let's not forget that we share that same spiritual DNA as a Peter, a Paul, a Mary, that within each of us, through our baptism, we're linked to the Vincent and Francis and Claires of history. We're not alone. But now the challenge is upon us. How will we let others know that they're not alone? How will you embrace them as one saint to another? How will you open those doors and open your arms, and how will I do that so that they know that they can be a part of this family too? So as we gather this morning for our family reunion, as we gather this morning to share in our holy and spiritual meal, let's be nourished and remember that even in this space right now, we are not alone. All the saints are with us here and now, and they support us and pray for us and care for us. Amen.